Okay, Louis, having read so many of your recent reports, I think what you're referring to in terms of this major shift that is occurring in the world order is following or the result of freezing Russian assets, correct?
Absolutely. Look, I think the greatest comparative advantage of the Western world by far is the fact that we have a blind justice system, right? You can be white, brown, black, you can be Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, you're going to get the same fair shake in a court of law. And this has been the strength, of course, of our systems. This is why I think for the past 25 years, emerging market investors have continued to accumulate Western assets. This is why Chinese people buy real estate in Toronto or Vancouver. This is why Middle Eastern people buy real estate in London. And what we've just witnessed with the freezing of not only the Russian central bank reserves, but more importantly, I would say the freezing of the Russian oligarchs' assets, is the Western world has just said, everybody gets the rule of property is sacrosanct and everybody gets a fair shake in our courts of laws, except if you're a Russian oligarch. We've just added an exception, and we've done it in a blanket way. Now, what does Roman Abramovich have to do with the Russian invasion of Ukraine? What does Michael Friedman have to do with the Russian invasion of Ukraine? Now, our desires to punish Russia for this crime of invading Ukraine, I think, has led us to commit a big error, because we've basically undermined the very strength of our systems. Because when the Western world says, look, your assets are safe here unless you're a Russian oligarch, if you're a Chinese tycoon, you're bound to think, well, hold on, what do you mean except you if you're a Russian oligarch? Because tomorrow, for all I know, Xi Jinping could invade Taiwan. And that's a decision I have no visibility on. That's a decision I have no influence on. But if Xi Jinping decides to invade Taiwan, does that mean that my mansion in Vancouver gets confiscated? If so, that mansion in Vancouver all of a sudden is a whole lot less attractive to me. Because the very reason I bought that Vancouver mansion was that it was my sort of fail-safe money, right? It was my bolt hole, and so by basically making a blanket condemnation of and punishment of Russian oligarchs, I think we've again undermined the very system that has made us so strong. Because if you look at the past, really since the Asian crisis, we've lived in a very odd world where emerging markets, because they were always worried about another crisis, would always look to maintain an undervalued currency and run trade surpluses and accumulate Western assets, mostly US treasuries, with those trade surpluses. And this would create a sort of safety mattress in case anything bad happened. Now, we've just told them, well, the safety mattress on which you're losing 5% real per year, the safety mattress, we have the right to grab it whenever we don't like what you're doing. And again, if you're China with $1.5 trillion in treasuries, if you're Saudi Arabia, if you're India, if you're any one of these countries, you might think, well, hold on, that wasn't the deal. And so this sort of odd world in which we've been living in, where basically consumption in rich countries was subsidized by people in poor countries through undervalued exchange rates and constant recycling of current account surpluses into the Western world. This may be coming to an end right in front of our eyes, because there really is no more reason to do it if from one day to the next your assets can be confiscated. Right. And that would mean rising emerging market currencies, because there's no more point in running current account deficits. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. Basically, if you look at the past few months, you've seen the Brazilian real go through the roof. You've seen the Mexican peso go through the roof. You've seen Chinese bond yields fall under US bond yields for the first time in modern history. You're seeing a profound shift, something that you perhaps wouldn't have expected as a direct consequence of what is perhaps one of the biggest crises in emerging markets, Russia invading Ukraine. But what most people are focusing on is how the dollar is strong against the euro and the yen. Meanwhile, it's being very weak against emerging market currencies.
It's hard to believe, though, that such a shift could take place when you think that people wouldn't still want US treasuries as a safe haven play. But, it's interesting when you list all those countries that are saying, wait a second, look, like whether it's Saudi Arabia, China, like massive economies with lots of wealth, you can start to see a world in which perhaps the US dollar doesn't dominate world currencies. We're going to pick it up right after the break.